Hey, Boyd, it's good to see you. You know that we've known each other for a long time, and we've had some these gatherings before, some podcasts that we've done before. But I'd like to pick up and see what you're really focusing on in 2026. And so, before we get there, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and Payfederate and who they serve and so forth?
Sure. So I'm Boyd Davis. I've been in the tech world for over 35 years. I came to Comp about a decade ago. So built my career as a business person and a business leader. So I approach compensation with that. In compensation, I started working with my brilliant co-founder, Barkat Ali, who's the real brains of the operation. And we were working on a merit cycle planning software company that we ultimately sold and then formed Payfederate. And we really looked at it from the standpoint of when you try to manage your comp from the comp cycle, you don't have enough leverage, you never get far enough, and people try to make the tail wag the dog. So we wanted to move further upstream and really think about how do you have the intelligence to pay people. And we built a product that not only does, market pricing, but you can actually have the full cycle that a comp practitioner has to have of job descriptions, job architecture, job pricing, and most importantly, how do you communicate and drive it into the business? So that's the company we built. We've had we're a young company still. We're only 3 years old, but we've had some good success. But I come at Comp very much from the standpoint of a 25-year business leader, not kind of the HR track record, and I think that gives me a good perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And so we mentioned those three things that you were trying to focus on this year, or are there key things that you want to focus on? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, obviously we're driving the business and trying to create value for customers, but I think thematically I see three things that are really critical in our space. One, obvious, the impact of AI. And it's great to be at World at Work because I expected a lot of AI hype and noise, and it's a little more sober, a little more practical, thinking about how to actually make it work. So we're in this phase of AI is no longer this thing that's coming. It's here. Sure. That's one. Number two is the importance of job architecture. Many organizations are still basically doing job pricing. And but the leading organizations and the people that understand how to make the biggest impact are really starting with a job architecture. I like to think of it as, do you want your employees to build careers or have a job? And this career orientation and thinking about how jobs fit, really, really important, and not enough a percentage of our space is doing it. So we're trying to make it easier, but that's a huge thing. And then the third one is an impact that every person, no matter your age or your job, should be thinking about, which is how do the standards for excellence change when you have so much capability with AI? And that means that we need to do something that's been long on the wish list of the executives who we work with, which is to have a higher degree of not only business acumen, but business thinking in terms of what is the impact of these things. So get out of the language of HR speak and comp ratios and range penetration and P50 and all that, and get into, how do we drive more revenue or profit if you're commercial, or how do we achieve our mission if you're in a mission-driven organization? Right. So those three things I think they're all related, but they all have unique elements to it. And I think that's an area where our perspective can really help our clients and the rest of the market move forward.
So let's start with the first point you mentioned, AI and HR and then tools. And as you said, we're here at the World War Conference, and in the past 2 years that we were here, there was a lot of buzz and panic almost. And now it's a little bit more somber, as you mentioned, and AI is here, it's embedded in tools, people are using it. So what are you seeing in there, and what does it mean for Payfederate and its clients?
Well, one thing I'll say is there was a lot of eye-rolling hype in the last year or two. And we both agree that this is a little bit more serious and practical. And yet, I actually think I see a fear in customers, right? They really don't know what's going to happen, and they're terrified of making a mistake. I think there's this lingering feeling in here. I could go, and we don't do comp planning, so I'll use that as an example. They could go buy a VCom or somebody like that, and then next week Claude HR will come out with a free version that is better, right? And it's not going to happen that way. I have high respect for the vendors here. I'm impressed with the vendors really, really getting it and adopting what they have to do. But there is a little bit of a chill. But I think on the good side, there's a broad, higher level of understanding of what's possible and what's capable. And the discussions aren't just we have AI. It's
Yeah.
more like what are you doing specifically with it. And I like that. It was our advantage when people weren't doing that because we could say specifically, here's the way we use it. But it's funny. I should look at all the good news about the seriousness and the acumen and all that. But I got to admit, I'm a little bit troubled by the general reluctance to move forward because people just don't know what's going to happen. So
Right.
it's on us to educate them and also to set them up to be more agile. There's some things we've been thinking about that just in the last few weeks that have rechanged our thinking about the platform, and we're on a track to figure out how to enable more independent innovation and still take advantage of our governance. So you'll hear more about this in the future, but it's moving fast, and I think we need to assure customers that you can still take action as long as you future-proof yourself and don't get into 3-year contracts and don't get into lock-in for platforms that aren't open. Right? There's some signals you can look at, but ultimately, if you wait, you're going to lose a year and not be any further ahead.
Right. Yeah, it's exciting. So you mentioned about really helping leaders understand the impact of AI, what it means, remove the fear, and so forth. And so, what is Payfederate doing in that regard? What's your plan, and to coach and inform leaders about the safety around AI and how it's used in Payfederate effectively?
I think there's a couple layers to it. One thing you have to work with vendors who they're very clear about what they're doing with the data. So we took a strategy from day one that we were not going to do AI so that we can farm our customers' data and then mine it for our own value, right? Honestly, I frame that like it's really, really bad, but there are some good business models that have fair exchange of value. But we didn't want to do that. We said we don't share any information training back with the large language models. We don't share information between clients. We don't let clients learn from one another. That's a limit. That's a choice. But it's a choice we made to say you got to start with a hard and fast rule that the value we're delivering is for the client, not, it's old saying, if you're not paying for it, you are the product, right? The second thing is you want to, a little bit more esoteric, is you want people to think differently about their applications. Again, I'll go back to merit planning, which we don't do. I think if you have a very simple merit cycle, base pay and budget, limited number of promotions, going out and buying a really, really expensive SaaS application that's designed for complex bonus programs and all that, no. So there's a lot of places where you don't have to do overkill anymore because you're going to have more choice. So make things purpose fit. And then I think the last thing is you got to try something, right? The reality is, except for very, very small individual, like personal productivity use cases, it's really hard to use the public AI tools now to hack something together, right? Yeah. So if you wait for that, you could do a year subscription and learn, how vendors have implemented AI and learn a lot more by the time you get anything. So I would say go buy the solutions that fix your problems. But don't get locked in for 3 years. Don't do the old enterprise SaaS thing. So right. I'm going back and forth on whether AI kills SaaS because I'm a SaaS company. Yeah. But the funny thing I look at it is I look at the SaaS companies we compete with, and they're nothing like it. Right. They spend an enormous amount on sales and marketing. They drive customers to get locked in for 3 years. It's just a different model. Yeah. I'm in the mode of we have to deliver value constantly, or they'll swap us out. So software companies are changing, but we're still a long way from the average practitioner, being better off hacking together their own. Yeah, I think you got it. I mean, as far as our communication with leadership and the delivering of value is what keeps us, there. That keeps them paying for that software year after year. If it delivers value, then of course it makes sense. Yeah. So let's go into the next piece that you mentioned as far as the job architecture. And yes, more than ever, we've seen jobs be created and destroyed in in a matter of months. And so can you tell us a little bit about how Payfederate keeps that job architecture fresh? Sam, it's a funny question because I personally have learned more about job architecture from you. So you should be answering this question because, we've taken guidance from you and people like you to really understand where this market is headed. The biggest thing was to start with a platform that was designed for practitioners to do their work.
Mm-hmm.
It was shocking to me as we got into the market a couple of years ago how many people buy their compensation management tool and they're just using it as a fancy lookup table.
Yeah.
Right? All they're doing is pulling the market data point that they need, and then they do all their actual work somewhere else. And we didn't set out to build a product to sell data, right?
Yeah.
We work with other data partners. We got great partners like Mercer and Salary.com that provide data, but we didn't want to build a platform to sell data. We wanted to build a platform to help price jobs and understand how to drive an overall compensation framework. So what we're seeing is that there's a bifurcation. The people that are maybe most experienced, most capable, the first thing they do when they think about I need to hire a new person is think about the job architecture, place it in the job architecture, understand where it's going to fit, and then price it.
Right.
But yet there's a large body of people out there that just find the market data and they're not thinking about the compensation from the lens of an employee. And so for that it's a bifurcation.
Yeah.
I don't know if you see that, but it really is. Are people doing it or not? And if they do it, they're starting to do it more frequently and take it more seriously because there are lots of questions about employees have questions of does my job exist in 3 years?
Right. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with whether you're in a certain industry versus another. I mean, there's certain industries that are just morphing and changing very quickly, and others that are still relatively stable, where jobs are changing at a slower rate. So your customers will probably experience both options. And so it's not. I'm glad that you're serving the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I think even for those organizations who haven't seen, like obviously there's kind of an organic need. It's some of the organizations you're talking about. They're running very specific on problems, but problems even for a slightly more stable organization, particularly in the current environment, is are they really using the job architecture to develop their people?
Yeah.
It's not a hiring tool. That's one of the challenges I have. I know a lot of customers, they'll end up buying their data from great companies like Aon or Mercer or Towers, and they'll just adopt that job architecture just because it's easier to match.
Yeah.
Well, the job architecture is really serving a different purpose, right? From the employee lens, it's what's my career and what do I need to do to move up, and is it make sense to me what my options are, right? It's not supposed to be a tool to make the comp life easier. So that's I think we need to promote people thinking about job architecture more than they are, and maybe remove that bifurcation a little bit.
Exactly.
I always think I used to think about ourselves. We're quite a small company, under 25 people. I actually apply some of those principles myself. What do we want these people to do and grow? So even if you don't write it down and certainly have the software, you need to think about it. So that's what I hope we can educate people on. And by the way, as tools like Payfederate and AI make the tactical, mechanical lives of our customers easier, they all want to spend time on this other stuff.
Yes.
Jobs aren't going away. People actually finally get to do the jobs.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, they get out of the weeds. I mean, stop spending all the time doing benchmarking and start thinking more strategically about retaining your top performers, keeping them engaged. And as you mentioned with job architecture, as it's changing, and that's what I love about Payfederate is that you have the job architecture and how you can change, drag and drop and move things around is so fluid.
Well, and tie it to the market data.
Yes.
That's always, to me, relatively new to this space, in the big scheme of things. And it's been fascinating to see the different methodologies that people use to get to the outcome. But it makes it easier if we can make it accessible. I think the challenge here is that if you're a 800 person, 2,000 person company, it's just been out of reach. And that's the other thing we're committed to do, that with this new style of software company, pricing is the other thing that's going to change. It's going to change. And the whole industry is set up around enterprises taking 6 months to select, paying $100,000 for a piece of software, and then being stuck on it for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
That will happen for years to come, but it's on its dying days, right?
Right.
And we look at it all the time. We use some sales and marketing tools, and every single one of them, my chief product guy said, we could build that. Why would we buy it? There's never a time that I could build any of this up I'm buying for less than I'm I'm buying it for.
Right.
But if it did, there would be somebody out there that could hack together exactly what they needed, and it doesn't have to do all the things that we have to do to cover the corner pages and all. So I think expect more aggressive pricing. The bigger, older companies are going to have a hard time though, because they've got a cost on an operational model that they're dependent on to hit their investors' gross margin targets. So it's better to start like where we're starting, where we spend almost nothing and just deliver a great product.
That's right.
I think that's the future of software.
Yep.
I really do.
I agree with you. So let's get to that last point you wanted to look at for 2026, and that's around keeping or driving value and to your customer, specifically around business intelligence. And so, what is Payfederate thinking about there?
Well, it's funny. It's not a challenge that we can have a meaningful impact on our own, right? So part of this is my role. I get to talk to a lot of the people that are driving the things in this. And I think we all need to start talking about it.
Yeah.
In terms of like what we actually deliver as my company, clearly part of it is to get the mechanics out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Our tool is really a tool. Like one of the things people expect AI to do that I think is a dangerous expectation is that we'll actually have insight or intelligence. It does not and never will.
Yeah.
I don't believe AGI. So if AGI happens, fine, we'll change the conversation. But as the current trajectory, you need to have the intelligence, but you need to have the things you do after you have the insight happen much more quickly. So part of it is just make it easier so they have time to pick their head up out of water.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it is looking for ways. Obviously, the analytics we deliver get quicker business answers,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also a theme that I'm pushing our company to think about and look for opportunities. Right? Do we build in metrics like human capital ROI or other like much more business-oriented metrics directly into the platform? Those are the kinds of things we'll look at. But the third one is really more. When you're in an industry and you see something that could benefit all of the participants in the industry, then it's just being an evangelist to try to get people to think about what other things can we collectively do to make it easier.
Right.
And also to get the practitioners themselves to reset where they think.
They're thinking at that higher level.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is that if you create a tool, like I said, that creates value like Payfederate, which really encourages the user to say, oh, I'm thinking about, I need to deliver this type of value, or what does Payfederate tell me today? And they can go into the tool and inspire them to say, okay, well, this is something I need to bring up to management, or I need to talk to this particular manager across the organization about this particular retention concern or so forth. So I think that Payfederate, used in the right hands, can deliver huge value. So I'm really excited.
And the last thing, may even be news for you, the latest thing we're working on, because a lot of the insight stuff, that's where people are leaving. They just it still doesn't do, like, in our world, I'm not happy with the way it does the mechanics. Your team uses our product and they're not, they're not completely delighted. So one of the things we're doing is we're going to use AI. I don't think anybody wants a pure natural language interface to their software.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to ask you questions, just have it give me the answer and I'm supposed to trust it. Right?
Yeah, right.
So what we're working on now is an AI guide say, this is what I want to do. And it just walks you through it and sends you to the app one step at a time and gives you coaching on the way. So you could see the work, because comp people are like, fourth grade math teachers, right? Show me the work. You don't get credit for the right answer. You have to show me the work.
Yeah, I'm quite excited about that.
So I'm really excited because then it makes it even easier for people who know what they want to achieve, but maybe just don't have the mechanics of any application are a little bit more complex. The concepts are important though. So we still only sell to practitioners. That's the one thing I will claim. I still believe that giving our product to an HR generalist would be like putting a race car driver behind an F-15 cockpit.
Right.
They're really good at what they do, but the capabilities we have are pretty complete. So
yeah, but this new I was talking to Barcat about this the other day, and so that he was showing me a bit of what you're trying to develop. Yeah. And then and it's so cool, because you can kind of ask questions and work with the tool, so it's more intuitive and can get you the information or show you how to get it quite easily. And so it helps with all different levels of practitioners. I mean, whether you're a first starter or you're an expert in the tool. So I think that's great.
Well, I've been inspired by some of the things that I'm experiencing. I actually have been inspired in the other direction by one of the tools I'm using. I really love the collaboration because it would always tell me how to do what I wanted to do. But it had a little bit of that chat GPT blows sunshine up your skirt kind of. Every idea I had was brilliant. And I actually told the founder, I'm like, you don't want it telling you you're an idiot every day. People will reject tools like that. But I'm like, it maybe just take my suggestion. Okay, I'll do that. Not, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So we'll have to watch that we don't, we always put the control in the hands of the customer. But you want to make it easy for them.
Right. I know exactly what you're saying as far as having these language models kind of be over enthusiastic, but you want them to come back and give you some constructive information. It's like, and then it reminds you about things that you might have let go or forgotten about.
Absolutely. Like I think it's the questioning standards, and again, without using any of our customers' information, we can develop over time some of these best practices and benchmarking, and certainly as our customer base grows, that's an area we'll look at where benchmarks are not just how much do you pay people. There's benchmarks for everything, and benchmarks are really, really valuable for people to know, and anything from spans and levels to revenue per head in your industry. There's a lot of different metrics we should be looking at, and AI should make it a lot easier.
Right.
So yeah, I remain unequivocally excited about AI with only the tiniest hint of trepidation, And I walk around the show, and I'll tell your audience, I'm almost 60 years old, so I've been around.
Yeah.
I actually experienced the internet transformation as an adult, which obviously a lot of people older than me, but in our industry, it's not so common. And the one thing I can assure people is exactly like this. Everything's changing. People are we're throwing up websites without knowing why. Business models were invented that made no sense, and those companies went out of business. There were some companies that didn't make it, and other companies that nobody expected to make it that came out stronger than ever, like Microsoft. Right. So buckle up, because it's not going to get any easier, but it isn't like we haven't seen this level of disruption before.
Right.
I'm not certain yet whether AI will be a bigger disruption than the emergence of the internet itself, but they're certainly kind of on the same scale of impacting humanity. So
it sure seems so, yes.
So I think, I can't tell people to relax, because you kind of stay aware in any kind of big societal upheaval, but be optimistic.
Great. So I'm going back to Payfederate and a message for leaders. And so when you think about what you want leaders to be thinking about this year, what are the top things that you think leadership should be focused on?
Well, I don't know how many corporate business leadership are out there, but one thing I would say is we as a compensation profession, the first thing we need to think about is we are investment managers. The biggest investment, most important investment a company makes, they make every year in payroll, and it's their biggest investment. And, they probably have more focus on managing meager treasury assets than they do of managing pay. So leadership needs to think of it as an investment, and the investment they pay in surveys, in your salary, in tools like Payfederate is, a tiny fraction of the gains they can get. But then for practitioners, it may be a shock, but my three simple messages would be: you can take action on AI now. Be thoughtful. You better be having a focus on a dynamic job architecture that really drives decisions, and drive your team to have more a seat at the table in the business, because the people are essential for even capital intensive businesses. People are the difference. So that concept of getting a seat at the table will require our leaders to talk in the same terms that the other business leaders do, which is, what's the mission that the shareholders want you to achieve?
Right. And that was a big point of asking that question, is for our listeners out there, really creating that business case. If you're a practitioner, there's the efficiency, there's the accuracy of the work, and it's they're lifting that professional so they can focus on more strategic elements and drive further value to the organization.
And one thing that may be a little bit controversial for your audience, but I try to tell comp people this because I was sitting on the other side of the table as a general manager, and the one thing I always tell comp practitioners is nobody cares how hard your job is, and nobody's going to lift a finger to make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
So if your business case to your leadership to buy a new survey or to buy a tool like Payfederate or to do anything is efficiency, they'll say it's a good idea and it'll follow the bottom of the list always. Right? Nobody cares if your job is hard. They only care if they're not getting an outcome that they care about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other piece of business acumen. When you're going to the CFO and saying we need to invest in this, every single person that goes to that CFO is saying that you get productivity gains and ROI.
Yeah.
You have to have something a little bit more compelling.
And so what is that compelling thing?
Well, ultimately, it's linking back the metrics, right? If you don't have numbers, you're going to be hand waving.
Yeah.
So if you're starting to track things like here's what we did from productivity, HEROI, revenue per head, profit per head, there are a lot of different metrics. You got to tailor the metrics, and obviously, if you're a nonprofit, you got to substitute profit for impact.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's no formula, but it's about even when you get to things like retention and recruiting and transition recovery costs, those are, I think, more well accepted as real spending.
Yeah.
But if you can go even further and say the cost of us being 10% below the market is going to be 3% more attrition, which is going to yield this impact, right?
Right.
Even if you kind of have to make it up, as long that everyday finance people have to make assumptions.
Yep.
And if I've ever reviewed any output from finance, the first thing I want to do is check the assumptions. Yeah. So you're not going to have anybody buy it, but our practitioners even going about it that way, right? And that's what I want. I want to make our people more impactful in their organizations because I think their leaders are often not aware of how important this is.
Yes, for sure. Well, thanks, boys, for your time today. One more question: what are you and Payfederate looking forward to this year?
Sam. I as I've gotten older, I have tried to view my own personal self through the lens of what I do for a living.
Yeah,
and that's hard for men. It's hard for me. And so what I look forward to is I have my son getting married.
Nice.
In 2 months.
Yeah.
I think I have another daughter getting engaged. The stuff of life is what I look forward to. Professionally, of course, I think this is our year. I went into the year saying I thought it was going to be the year of job architecture. We're in a unique situation. We're the only platform that has a dynamic job architecture linked to market pricing. You don't get to say in the world of SaaS that you have something important that nobody else has.
Yeah.
So this is our year where a lot of people haven't heard from us. We've been pretty stealthy. We don't spend a lot on sales and marketing, nor will we. We want people to look at the product and experience the product. But I think by the end of the year, not only will we, I think, really emerge, but I know my competitors and some partners are looking at what we're doing and they're emulating it. So one of the cool things about innovation in our country, because you can fail so easily, is that even if Payfederate isn't successful, which look, I'm a grown up, that's possible.
Yeah.
We will have made a positive impact on the world, right? That's the joy of being a startup. Well, I hope it's us.
For sure. Well, I already see competitors trying to follow your lead, so it's great to be first and to have that real good strategic mindset that others can follow upon. But thanks for that insight there, for sure.
All right, thanks Sam for spending time with me. I appreciate the chance to share my thoughts, and certainly appreciate all you've done for us.
Thank you. All right, for all those listeners out there listening into the People Strategy Forum, we will see you next week. All right, take care.